like one of the number one for plastic surgery and like lip filler, Botox, all that stuff.
I didn't know that. They have the highest number per capita of plastic surgeons.
Why do you think?
Because the momos tell them they have to look perfect.
Yet the men look like a fucking sewer rat. Like, how come they don't go get it?
How did I get here?
Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Amanda Ray, and if you have not seen my videos before, I escaped a polygamous cult when I was 17, almost 18 years old. There's more videos linked in the description box down below if you are interested in that story. But today, we have a special guest. Her name is Shelise. You've seen her before. If you are not subscribed to her channel, go subscribe. Her link to her channel, Cults to Consciousness, is in the description box down below. We just were on her channel filming some juicy gossip.
Guys, we got all of the juice on all of Amanda's relationships and why we tend to fall into them after leaving cults. It's not all our fault.
Yeah.
Some of it's our fault, but it's not all our fault.
You can't blame us. We don't know any better. But we so conveniently not forgot, but we didn't have enough time to tell your trauma from your relationships.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking in this episode we'll discuss whatever you're comfortable with your previous relation. Yeah, exes, what you learned, what if you dated any realtors. Let us know.
The takeaway from our video on my channel was don't date realtors.
Yeah. Then I would like most of this episode to be productive for viewers too, to be like, how do we heal from this stuff? Because like I think talking about it is really healing as well. But how do we heal from the trauma of it so that it doesn't repeat, right? So we can go into what you learned from it afterwards and how you were able to find, because now you have an amazing husband.
Yeah.
And there's no repeating the cycle. So you had to have healed to get to that point, right? So, but let's first talk about the trauma.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, I grew up mainstream Mormon. So the watered down version of her cult. And the thing with mainstream Mormonism is it really is a psychological cult. So a lot of times people will be like, Mormonism's not a cult. It's such an amazing group and they do so many wonderful things for so many people and the people are amazing. And I'm not saying that none of that is true, because two things can be true at once. It can do good for people and be very incredibly harmful for some people. And so it also depends on how much you internalize it. It depends on how strict your family was, your upbringing. It depends on how your parents interpreted the scripture, how much they forced it onto you, how much you internalized and decided to become the type of Mormon that they want you to become. Some people are just kind of Jack Mormon and they're like, yeah, I go to church and it's fine. Or maybe they don't go to church. They're like, yeah, I believe it. I'm culturally Mormon and it's fine. It's never hurt me in any way. And that's great if that's for you. But in my case, I feel like I did have parents who didn't force it down my throat, but I definitely was the A+ student Mormon. Like I wanted to be the best Mormon that I could be. I think the things that I would slip on would be modesty, because I loved fashion. I ended up going to school for fashion design, and so that was the one thing that I pushed back on, but never drank. I still don't drink alcohol. My first actual drink was on my honeymoon last year, and I'm 33 years old.
How did it feel? Did you feel naughty?
I feel so naughty. Honestly, I didn't love it. I was like, people like this feeling? Not a fan.
What'd you drink?
It was a rum drink. Honestly, it was kind of a weird concoction. We were at a restaurant and it was very fancy and frilly and not the greatest probably to actually try, but it was right after the monkey forest and I had just gotten bit by a monkey and I was like, It feels like a good time to have a drink.
Yeah.
So anyways, I was very much involved in wanting to be a good Mormon. Plus I lived in Utah and that's kind of like what you do. And so I internalized a lot of the doctrine, especially the purity culture stuff, and feeling really ashamed of my body, constantly being told that you can't make men look at you because they'll have sinful thoughts and it's your fault if they lust after you. But simultaneously, you need to be beautiful and perfect so that you get the most worthy husband. because they would tell the men that the more worthy you are, the prettier your wife will be.
Wow.
And so we were just talking before we rolled cameras that Utah has the highest number per capita of plastic surgeons, and wonder why. It's so interesting that the whole your body is a temple thing is so preached, yet plastic surgery, Botox, lip fillers, eyelash extensions, fake everything is the norm. It's not just, it feels like it's not just the norm, it's encouraged in a weird way. And not to say that the church is telling you to do those things, it's not, but it's the underlying messages that make you feel like you need to.
Yep.
So, of course, I'm not saying they're getting up in general conference and saying, you ladies should get lip fillers. No, they're not saying that. But
it's the same though in the order, the cult that I came from, because it's like, I remember one of the leadership saying, you know, it's okay, you don't have to like go out and spend a bunch of money, but it's okay if an old barn gets some new paint. And they were kind of talking, and my mom said that's why I had blonde hair. The blondes in her mind were like going to have more opportunities. You want to be a first wife, you want to be the one that gets the more opportunities. And I think it's crazy the way that you put it. It's so like hypocritical in a way, like, hey, don't dress sexy, you don't want their eyes to look too much, but we do want their eyes to be looking, you know. And it doesn't matter what the guy looks like, he's gonna bring her to heaven, right? It doesn't matter his looks, because the placement in heaven is the goal here. But at the end of the day, why would your looks bring you to that? You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense.
I will admit, I think a lot of it has to do with Utah culture specifically. I can't say the same for other places. I was a Mormon in Vegas and in Portland. And when I was in Portland, it was almost the opposite of like, you shouldn't be wearing makeup. I remember for some weird reason, the bishop's daughter wasn't even allowed to wear makeup, and she was in high school. And I'm like, this is weird. I'm not one of those weird Mormons, I swear. I'm like the cool ones that dress up.
I'm a cool mom.
I'm a cool mom. So I think it may be a Utah thing. Nonetheless, it definitely played a big role in my upbringing, in my life, and in my insecurities, body dysmorphia, wanting to be pretty enough to attract men, but don't be too pretty or you'll be seen as a slut. And it just like living in that really uncomfortable space definitely informed the way that I chose men outside of leaving. So, or outside of the cult once I left. So when I did leave, I remember thinking, well, first of all, the reason that I left, and if you guys don't know my story, the quick version is that I was dating someone for a year. His plan was to turn me into a Mormon housewife. He told me that later. He's like, I know you had dreams and goals of becoming an actress in LA, but
I don't care.
He was like, my plan was just to marry you and turn you into a housewife. And I was like, wow, bullet dodged. So I was dating him for a year. Gave him a blowjob. Sorry, I don't know how rated R you get on this channel. But anyway.
It was love at first blowjob.
Still a virgin, and I was very proud of that. And then he was like, come on, let's just do it. I'm like, I don't know if we should. And we ended up in the bishop's office because immediately he was like, oh, I think we should tell the bishop. So I had to go and confess my sins, and the bishop just made me feel like a horrible human being. He's like, you're doing things that are unnatural. It's nowhere to be found in the Bible. And I'm like, oh, really? Oral sex? And he was trying to punish me as if it was sex. I'm like, no, it wasn't. I could have had actual sex and gotten the same punishment. And he's like, you're just not spiritual enough. I think you guys need to break up because you're a bad influence. And just like,
how old were you again?
Beating me down. I was 19.
Oh my gosh.
19 or 20, yeah. And I was in the singles ward, so hyper focused on sex. So if you're not familiar with Mormonism, and the mainstream kind, when you hit 18, you can't go to a family church anymore. You have to go to a singles ward. If you live in an area that has enough singles to make up an entire church, then you go there, and the goal is to pair you up with other singles so that you marry another Mormon and you have a bunch of kids and Mormonism grows. So I was in the singles ward, and after that was basically what led me to finally researching about Mormonism and finding out that it was all made up.
Yep.
And so when I got out of that hamster wheel, I was just like, oh my gosh, my options are endless and I can do anything. And I can be with someone who's not Mormon now because, you know, my sights were pretty set. I had dabbled in relationships with people who weren't Mormon, but at the end of the day, they need to be Mormon, so you either convert them or, like, how are you going to raise the kids?
Right.
And there was this one guy, this was the first toxic relationship, and I laugh because so many of the same things that you had just talked about on my channel happened to me in this relationship. I met him at a church function.
So
but
he
wasn't Mormon,
Oh.
but it's because we went to the lake to swim, and I was in my cute little bikini, and I should have been wearing a one piece, and they probably shamed me for it later. But I remember I was in like my hot girl era. I'm 19, so I'm like super fit, and I'm like laid out against a rock, and I see this guy just full of tattoos, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's so hot, and he had that caramel skin that I like. Sorry, baby,
Literally.
if you're watching this. Yeah, and so he was so my type, and he had these bright blue-green eyes.
It's your type, because same with me.
Because,
the
like,
type,
the
because
bad
it's the
boy type.
opposite. Yep, the
Yeah.
opposite of what you're supposed to be having.
Yeah,
oh my
and
gosh.
because it's my theory that because there is pretty much no diversity in Utah, I've always been attracted to ethnic men. So anyone who's not white. It's
Yeah.
like, ooh, you're ambiguous. What's your ethnicity?
Like, I'm American.
Anyways, I see him. I'm super just head over heels immediately, and he catches my eye, ends up talking to me. We start dating, and this was, it was after I had broken up with this guy who made me go confess to the bishop. So I was still kind of in, but on my way out of leaving. So I was probably still going to some of the activities because I was bored, like the singles ward activities and hanging out with people because those are my friends. So it was in a transitionary period, and we got together right away. And I remember telling him I'm a virgin. I want to wait till marriage because I was still very much like, this is my plan. And I wasn't ready to knock the whole Jenga tower of Mormon values and rules over yet. We're just gonna pull one little cog out at a time, right? Like, date the non-Mormon was my idea, not just throw everything away. But after, I don't even know how long it was, he basically forced me into it. And I wouldn't say it was like a big traumatic R-word scene. I don't want to get you demonetized, but it definitely wasn't consensual, and he took my virginity. And I was like, well, that's what I get for dating a non-Mormon.
Oh.
Right? So immediately I'm feeling guilty and ashamed, and that's not what I wanted, and I was crying, and he's like, what did I do wrong? And I'm like, the one thing I told you not to do, you know? And so pretty quickly I was like, well, I guess I'm ruined, and that's just who I am, so now I'm just going to have sex. And it's just like, well, whatever.
So did it feel like, I'm damaged goods
Pretty
because
much.
of the church?
Yeah,
oh my
like,
gosh,
well, I
that's so
screwed
sad.
up, and that's what I get for dating a non-Mormon, and that's what happens when you fall away from the church. And those little thoughts that even though I knew Mormonism is provably false, I still was like, but what if it's not? And what if I just ruined my chances, and now I'm never going to go to the highest level of heaven?
Yeah,
Right?
I had that too. Like, you leave, and you're obviously not believing in it because you chose, like, even me, like, I chose to, like, lose my whole family. But there was still, like, parts of me that was like, did I, am I going to hell? Yeah, there was this quote that this person who, he's so, like, I think he's atheist, but he came from religious background, and he said, it's funny for someone who's so atheist, why do I fear God so much? Like, there's moments where I'm like, you know? And we both probably have had that multiple times because it's so ingrained in you. So did you feel like, each time that you were deciding to go have sex or go have all of these different relationships that, well, I'm just a bad person, I don't really care?
Partially, yeah. I feel like I knew I wasn't a bad person, but I thought because I didn't know what a baseline, like, healthy sexual relationships were, that I'm like, maybe I'm just a whore and I'm kind of okay with that. Because I knew that it didn't make me a bad person to want to have sex because I knew it was natural.
Yeah.
And that's really the only reason that I allowed myself to research Mormonism anyway. Because when he was making me feel so ashamed for giving a blowjob, I was like, really? It's not that crazy. Because Mormonism always says sex is the sin next to murder because you're messing with procreation.
Oh my gosh.
And so in my head, I was like, it's just a blowjob. Like, no one's getting pregnant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not that crazy. It's not that big of a deal. So because he was shaming me so hard, I was like, that doesn't feel right. I knew in my gut that didn't make me a bad person because also I wanted to marry this man. We've been dating for a year. It's not just some random guy. Like, I loved him and I wanted to be with him. And that's like a whole different story. But anyways, with this other guy, I was like, okay, well, that's who I am now. We were dating seriously. I fell head over heels for him. He was just like, oh, he's so good looking, and he just was the smooth talker, and he could just say anything, and I would believe it. And one day, it was not even that long into dating him, less than a month, maybe 2 weeks. I look over at his phone, similar to you, when you just like happen to catch a text message that pops up.
Yep.
And it was from a girl, and we'll call her Peyton. It's not her name. It's like from Peyton, and I'm like, huh, who's that? You know? And I think it said something about your baby. And I'm like,
what?
Who's this? And he was like, oh, I was gonna tell you. I didn't want to tell you right away because this girl's pregnant. She's my ex, but like we barely even dated that long. I don't think it's my baby, which is why I didn't want to tell you. She's trying to say that it's my baby and like trying to, you know, the whole thing. And I was like, oh man. And me being so naive and young and like sheltered, I was just like, okay, yeah. I mean, I guess we're just gonna have to wait till she has the baby to know if we do a paternity test, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to believe him so bad, and he was so convincing. So we're still together this whole time, right? And the time comes for her to have the baby, and he was like, yeah, I mean, she wants me to be there, but I don't even want to be there because it's not my baby. You know, the whole thing. And I'm just like, well, are you going to get the paternity test? Like, I'm on his side. Like, this chick is trying to get child support from you, you know? And I'm just like, oh, so
I hate that. It's like pitting the women against each other.
Yes.
I will never. If a guy starts to talk crazy about his ex, then I'm like, you know, what did you do to make her crazy? Okay?
Exactly. So I end up getting this message on Facebook that was like, hey, this is Peyton. You must be his girlfriend. And I was like, yeah. And who? You must be the baby mama, you know?
The
like,
fake baby mama.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
And she was like, I really want to talk to you because he's been claiming over and over and over that he doesn't have a girlfriend, but I know that you're his girlfriend. And I was like, yeah, that's me. And she's like, you need to come over and we need to talk. And so similar to you, it's like, okay, well, let's see, like, we'll see what she has to say. I'm not trying to believe her. He's told me all these stories about her, right? About why I shouldn't talk to her or believe her, anything. But he doesn't know that she's reached out to me. And so I go over to her house and I tell him, because he had been sleeping at my house almost every night. And I was like, hey, I'm going to spend the night with a friend tonight so that he doesn't know where I'm going. So I go over there, and while I'm sitting there and she's telling me all these stories, and her mother was there too. She's like, Mom, can you come in so like back up what I'm saying? And she was at her mother's house too. Like she was living with her mom to take care of this baby alone. And she was like, he told you he didn't know if it was his baby? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, he's been with me the entire pregnancy. We've been dating the entire pregnancy. He was at the hospital, like, crying when she was born.
Oh,
and
my gosh.
And I'm like, what? And she was like, yeah, he's been trying to get back with me this whole time. And I've been telling him no because I knew that he was dating someone and he was lying. And that's how I found you. And then we're sitting there and her phone rings and it's him. And he's like, can I come over? Yeah.
So she says, yeah?
I was like,
come on over,
bring
bitch.
him over. And she was like, I want you to hear all the things that he's saying so you know I'm not lying.
Yeah.
So I went and hid in another room. And he comes in and he's like, where's my baby? And like doing the whole thing. And
was you like shaking?
Oh, yeah. And she's trying to get it out of him, like, don't you want to run away together? Like, don't you want to go move? And he's like, yeah, but why are you asking about this? Like, he was kind of suspicious. And so I got to hear some of it, but not all of the confessions, because she was maybe pushing too hard.
Yeah.
So he starts getting mad at her for some reason. I don't remember. He goes to storm out, and I'm like, oh, he's going to know that I was here. So I walked out, and he was like, oh, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? You're supposed to be at a friend's house, you know, like whatever, because they always make it your fault.
Gaslight you.
And I was like, I don't know how you look at yourself in the morning.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do
how
it.
You sleep at night, how you look at yourself,
I was
ugly
like,
ass eyes.
I said to him, I was like, you don't deserve either of us. And he was like, what? And he just starts like yelling at me. So I just run out and then go home, and I'm panicking because she's told me all this information, like, he deals drugs, he breaks into people's houses and steals stuff. And
you never
and
seen any side of him like that?
No.
And you'd been with him for a year, you said?
No, this guy, I think I was dating, well, you know, when she was pregnant, had the baby. So, like, over 9 months at least. Wow. I don't remember exactly how long. And he's with me every single night. And so I'm like, how does he have time to have a girlfriend? So now I'm gaslighting myself like, wait, maybe she's lying because she really does just want to get him back and she wants to have a father for her child. And so I run home because now I'm afraid and I know that he's going to come back to my house. He had a key to my house. So I'm changing the lock. I'm like shaking. I'm changing the lock and I run out of the house. I go to my car and I go park in front of a friend's house and they weren't answering the phone. So I slept in my car. I took out the battery of my phone because she had told me that he knows how to hack cell phones and he probably put a chip in my phone and is tracking me. And so I'm so paranoid. And I go home the next morning and my neighbor, my sweet old like 80-year-old neighbor comes out and he was like, is everything okay? Because there was a guy here banging on your door trying to jump the balcony to get into your house.
Oh,
and I'm like,
my
I
gosh.
knew it. So anyway, I ended up talking to him and he is just like, oh my gosh, Peyton is crazy. And like, I told you, I didn't think it was my baby and she just wants me back. And he was like, I've been with you this whole time. How could I possibly have a girlfriend? So now I'm just like, right?
You're right.
Just like letting myself get sucked back into all of this. And I'm just like, who do I even believe? He takes me back to his house and his roommate's there. And he's like, tell him what you told me. And so I'm telling him the story about Peyton and he's like, what do you mean? That's not even possible. Like, she's never over here. They're not dating. And I'm just like, who do I believe? I just felt so crazy. And just this whole thing of I left Mormonism to have freedom. And if this is what freedom looks like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah. It's like feels like a slap in the face a little bit.
Yes. And I don't even know how it ended or if it was man, I'm gonna really like call myself out here. She ends up getting in contact with me again and she was like, by the way, he gave me chlamydia, you should get tested. And that's when my heart sunk. I'm like, he just took my virginity and now I'm probably have a disease.
What an asshole.
Yes.
Has no regard for anyone else's health or safety or his own child. Like, what a fucking loser.
Yeah, because they were still having sex while she was pregnant. So she had to
Does the baby have chlamydia now,
right,
too?
so she had to go through special, I don't know what it was, special procedure to make sure that the baby was safe. But anyways, he did end up giving it to me. Thankfully, it's the one that you can get rid of.
Yeah.
The one STD. But I remember when I got the phone call from the clinic, I just bawled. I just broke down. I didn't hear anything they said after it was positive. I was just bawling. I was like, I'm ruined. No one's ever going to want me. Not only am I not a virgin, but now I have this disease. And I just thought life was over.
Yeah.
And he has betrayed me. And she was right. Clearly, they were sleeping together or else, like, how would I have it, you know? And so I think that was the last straw. And I just remember going over and breaking up with him. And I was trying to stand in my power. And I'm just like, it's over. Like, I'm not going to be with you. And he was just sobbing uncontrollably. He goes in the street. He, like, throws himself on the ground. And
Why is it always that way? They're, like, snot dripping out of their nose. Like, I love you so much.
The only thing that means anything to me. And, like, it's just so dramatic. And I'm just thinking, you really don't get it, do you?
Mm-hmm. They're not sorry either.
No,
They'll fucking do it again.
Exactly.
That's the thing that bothers the shit out of me.
Okay, you told this story about your ex. Wait, it gets better. So fast forward, I think a couple years later, I was in a study abroad in London. And so I moved from Vegas to London. He contacts me after a few months and was just like, hey, how's it going? I miss you. I want to talk to you. And I look at his profile, and he's engaged to somebody.
See? Yep.
How dumb do you have to be?
Do you have that? This is what I had when I saw that with my other ex, where he had a girlfriend and he was reaching out to me. I had this like instant wanting to protect her. Like I wanted to tell her. And then I had to remind myself, like, 1, she might not even believe you. Mm-hmm. 2, he's gonna make you sound crazy. Mm-hmm. 3, it really isn't your responsibility, even though you feel that obligation. But did he marry her?
I don't know.
Oh, to God, no.
I think he did because I think I ended up seeing a wedding picture of them. Yeah, and I was like, what? I mean, I think he even came back into my life again a couple years later. I want to say I drove to his house just out of sheer curiosity and was just like, who are you now? And he was just still the same lying
piece of
crap.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was the first time I was conned, and it happened again, and it wasn't, I want to say it was worse, but maybe not as dramatic, but it was definitely like, shit, Shelise, why do we fall for these narcissists?
Yep.
Because, and we talked about this on my channel, I feel like when you leave a high control group, they very much function like a narcissistic relationship, where they're like, no, I never taught this, or we never said that. You're the problem, not us. You just need to pray more. You just need to read your scriptures more.
Have faith in something you cannot see.
You're having a weird feeling. Well, that's a you problem. That's Satan creeping in. Doubt your doubts. Don't look up the information. I mean, the Mormon Church has literally said, if you have questions about the church history, don't research it. Just pray. And I'm like, that makes no sense.
The order said similar, like, are you questioning God? Having these questions is questioning God, and that's a sin.
Yeah.
So it's like just blindly follow, and then you're so trained to not trust yourself and trust a man more than yourself.
Yes.
So of course in these relationships you're gonna be like, okay, you're right, you know, when the reality is they're the fucking shitbag.
And you're also trained at the same time to be godly and be sweet and
turn the other cheek.
Put others ahead of your own needs, and always be giving and service and this and that. And so you want to see the best in people. You're trained to have hope in people changing. I mean, you're trained to go out and convert people. So of course you're gonna have these rose-colored glasses, like, oh, but they'll change. Oh, but they said that they want to do better, and that's just not reality. You can't just go out changing people. Yeah. It just doesn't work that way.
Right. And that's the part where I think not even just people that are in religious trauma, it's people that, like, they're taught that true love, and I think this is the fake thing. Maybe Hollywood taught this, or Disney, I don't know. The true love is like never giving up on someone, even if they drag you through the fucking mud. And I think that's how these cult mindsets are too, is it's like God's kingdom is God's kingdom, and you're gonna need to do what you have to do to get there.
Here's another one: forgiveness. You just need to forgive them. Soften your heart, sister.
Soften your heart and forgive.
Give them another chance. I mean, that's your entire life, especially Mormonism. You grow up repenting of your sins constantly. It's like, that's where scrupulosity comes from, this religious OCD of, I gotta repent, I gotta tell someone that I'm a sinner, I need to do better. Every single night you are supposed to pray and ask for forgiveness for your sins. Like, what did I sin? How did I sin today? I don't know, I gave my mom attitude. Well, you better repent about that. And so when you grow up with this forgiveness mindset and someone hurts you, it's, I just need to forgive them, or I'm the bad person. Yeah.
I also think there's this idea of forgiving helps you to let go. But I think there's some times where maybe forgiveness is the wrong word, because what they did to you was not okay. You don't need to be like, oh, it's okay, because it wasn't okay. But there is a way to be able to let it not affect you any longer, not have that grasp on you any longer emotionally, but without having to forgive them.
Yeah, I feel like the way that it's taught in religion is forgive and forget. You need to forgive the person and move on. And I think the better, healthier way is let go of the thing that hurt you so it doesn't continue hurting you, but never forget it.
Right.
And you don't have to tell them, hey, it's okay that you did that. You don't have to have any contact with that person. Right. If forgiveness for you is letting go of it in your mind so it doesn't hurt you and never speaking to the person again, that's fine too. Yeah. At least in my opinion. I don't feel like they need to have any sort of forgiveness from you for you to have forgiveness for yourself.
Right. Because that's an internal thing. You don't need the permission from the other party.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. So after that, did you have a hard time trusting ever again?
Right. Well, I'm such a hopeless romantic. I think what happened immediately after that is really funny, because I went the total opposite, and then I was like, oh, course corrected too hard, because I mean, bless him, he's so sweet. I went to London. It was one of those moments where I was like lost on the train, and which train do I take? They're about to close, and how am I gonna get home if I don't know which train to take? And he comes to the rescue in his British accent, and he's like, I don't want to do it because I'm gonna butcher it, but he's just like, what train do you need to take? And oh, it's this one, ladies. And then he gets on the same one and asks for my number, and I'm like, oh, my prince, my Prince Charming.
Damsel in distress.
And then he's like, would you like to come to dinner? And I'm like, yes, I would love to. And so I go to his house and we like play croquet in the backyard. And he's like, I grew up singing for the Queen. I'm like, wow, you're just so amazing. And he's a composer. And guess what? He lives in Los Angeles. And that was my plan, is to move to LA after I get home. I was like, it's meant to be. God put you in my path. So anyway, I have this romance of, it's like overseas romance, because he was just visiting his family, and so he went back to LA, and the whole rest of the time that I'm there, we're pen pals, and he's writing these big romantic letters, and I'm like, oh wow, someone who's in tune with his emotions. And I get home and he meets me in Vegas. It was this whole thing. We just could not wait to see each other again. And almost immediately I was like, oh shit, I don't like him.
What? Why?
Because he was so dainty and like feminine, and I was used to the hardcore, like super sexy, masculine. Yeah, and I was like, oh, this is bad.
we could be friends.
And it was so sad because it was also one of those crazy synchronicities where I was like, okay, maybe I'm just being too hard on it. I gotta give it a chance. You know, we just barely saw each other. So I go to California and I stay with him for a week while I'm looking for a job and a place to live so I could move there. And I just so happened to get this job. Oh my gosh, this is such a weird story. So I was looking for a live-in nanny position. And because I don't know anyone, like, they wouldn't rent me an apartment if I didn't have proof of a job, and no one would hire me if I couldn't show that I lived there. If I didn't have an address, they wouldn't hire me. They're like, you don't really live here and you probably won't move, so we're not going to hire you. So anyway, I was like, I need a live-in nanny position so that I could have both. So I come across this job on Craigslist. It's a live-in dog walker. And I was like, whoa, it's this beautiful house in Venice.
Wow.
The rent is free. And I would have an address, and all I have to do are walk some dogs. And I would have my own bedroom, my own bathroom. This guy, we don't even have time to go into this guy. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say, what's the catch?
Craziest story. We'll have to do it another time.
He's like, you get a completely big home. You get to take care of my dogs. You just have to sleep in my bed too. Is that
Basically.
what it was?
Basically.
I have room for you right here.
It's so bad.
Ew.
I just didn't know, Amanda. So I move in there, and it just so happens that this British guy lived on the same block.
Wow.
Literally down the street. I could walk there in 2 minutes. And so I was like, oh, I clearly, like, maybe I should give him a chance. And then I was like, no, Shelise, you have to follow your gut. I was starting to learn how to follow my intuition. I was learning how to trust myself. And I was like, you don't like him. Stop leading him on. He wants to marry you. You don't want anything to do with him. And so, being a good person that I thought I was, I broke up with him before I even moved there because I didn't want him to help me move. And then I'm like, thanks for your help. Anyways, bye.
Yeah.
And the poor guy, I would catch him in the bushes, like sneaking around, hoping to see me.
Holy, that's a little scary though.
I know, and I was like, "What are you doing?"
He's like, Shelise, what are the odds?
What are the odds? And it didn't help that he lived down the block. But so then I'm in this like other ridiculous situation with this live-in dog walker guy. He's halfway a celebrity. He was married to a celebrity, and she ended up calling me and tried to warn me about him before I moved in. And she was like, he's crazy, he just wants to sleep with you. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna sleep with him, so it's fine. I was like, I just need free rent, you
Was
know?
it Leonardo DiCaprio? Just kidding. I know how he likes younger women.
Oh my gosh.
Just kidding.
No,
That's so nice of her though, that she went out of her way to go warn you.
You know what? She sounded like the crazy ex because he had already told me about her. Just like this other guy.
They set it up.
They set it up because he knew. And so a week after I moved in, actually the day I moved in, okay, we have to get into the story just a little bit because it's too good not to. The day I moved in, there's boxes all up in my room. I'm in the second floor of this gorgeous house. It's one of those like concrete floors, really modern, super nice house. There was not a shred of evidence in sight that another woman used to live there. He was like, I was married, now I'm not. That's why I need someone to take care of the dogs when I'm not home. And I'm like, makes sense. I get there, everything's out. There's like a whole room that's empty. And so she was like, yeah, well, we're separating, but he's crazy. And I'm like, okay, well, if she doesn't live there, it's fine. So I get there and I hear these voices downstairs and they're getting louder. I'm like, that's not the TV. She starts screaming at him, where's this bitch? I bet she's in your bedroom right now. And I'm like under the covers, hiding behind boxes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, please don't come in here. She's running up the stairs. He's grabbing her and she's like, stop pulling my hair. And I'm like, this is insane. She bites him. She flings open the door to find me. And I'm like in the dark, right? And I'm just like, oh my gosh, please don't come in. And he grabs her and pulls her back. He's like, get out of there. This is none of your business. And she was crazy. And so in my head, it was validating, oh, she's just crazy. Mm-hmm. So I didn't want to listen to anything that she was saying. Well, the next day, he's like, I'm really sorry. You know, she's jealous. She thinks that you're here to sleep with me. And I'm like, well, I'm not. Mm-hmm. And long story short, he ended up getting crazy and was like, well, you have to move out in a week because I'm a sex addict and I want my wife back, and if you live here she won't take me back. And I was like, okay,
what the hell?
So I was like, gladly I will get out of your purview because you're saying that you're a sex addict and I don't want to live with you, even though he was kind of hot. And I was like, okay, I need to get out of here.
Yeah. How long was the stay?
3 weeks.
Oh, shit, that was fast.
3 weeks, yeah. I lived there for 2 weeks, and he was
You're like, can I use your address to get some, like, jobs?
No, I did get a job,
Okay,
and then I
good.
told him, I was like, you're going to pay for my U-Haul because I don't have money to do that. You're going to pay for my first month's rent in my new apartment.
Good.
I'm living here for free for a reason, you know? Yep. And you are going to say on my rental application that I work for you making $1,200 a month so I can even get this apartment on my own, qualify. Right. And he said, okay. So I did get all of those things.
That's good.
And moved into this place that was super sketchy, full of spiders, was just like infested. I had no idea.
Oh.
And then, like it was in a sketchy neighborhood where pizza delivery people wouldn't even come. They're like, no, we don't deliver to that area. And I'm like, yes, you do. They're like, call this other place. No, we don't deliver to that area. You have to call them. And I'm like, I just want pizza.
Oh my gosh.
I'm alone in LA. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. So those were my first experiences out of the cult.
Yeah. LA can be scary too. Like one of our first trips that we took after leaving a cult, me and my sister and my brother, it was here in LA, but it's like California is so crazy where you can be on the freeway passing like you get off an exit, there's like $1 million homes.
Yeah.
You missed your exit, you get off the wrong one, and you're like afraid you're gonna get shot. Like I remember there was a point where we were gonna get gas, we were running out of gas, and we pulled off to this exit. There was graffiti everywhere, there was sketchy shit everywhere, and you're like, you know, we could just risk it and just try to make it to the next town because this is sketchy.
Yeah.
But then you get to the next town and it's expensive. Mm-hmm. So you go back.
Yeah, they're like little pockets, and I definitely picked one that was not the greatest. So I had 4 locks to get into my apartment.
Holy
all the
shit.
windows were barred.
Can you imagine if you're like running from someone trying to like get into your home?
Can I imagine? That was my imagination every single day, that I was like running. I would run up and I'd be like, oh my gosh, please, get in the house, and then close the door and lock the door and lock the door and lock the door and lock the door. And there would be helicopters flying above the apartment, like trying to get people to come out of places next door.
Oh
so
my.
Like there was some reason to be scared, but also I was a cult kid, you know. I was sheltered, and I didn't know,
especially from Utah too. Like
yeah.
I used to be like, oh, I can handle Vegas because I grew up in the ghetto of Utah, which is West Valley. It's like the worst thing that happened is maybe like someone ran into our fence or stole one of the bikes, and that was like ghetto for Utah.
Yeah.
But here it's like you're gonna die.
You can die.
Yeah. Was your mom scared for you, or was your mom?
Yeah. Yeah, she was nervous. She didn't know where I moved because she had flown down from Oregon to pack up the U-Haul from Vegas, drive me to California. She got me settled.
She sees your place. She's like,
I mean, he met my parents, this guy, right? In this beautiful house, and she met all the dogs, and she's like, okay. And he's like, don't worry, I'll take care of her. Like the whole thing that they always do.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, Mom, gotta move again. And she's like, what? What do you mean? And she's like, I just helped you.
He's a crazy sex addict, actually.
Sorry. Yeah, I probably didn't tell her that part. And so, you know, I'm like, I gotta do this on my own because I can't rely on my parents. You know, I'm an adult now. I was only 21. I just turned 21.
That's still so young to be living on your own in a new place.
Yeah, but then when she did come back, when she came to visit me again, she was like, Shelise, you live here? Like, here? This is what you chose? And I'm like, it's the only thing I could afford, because I didn't know anyone to room with, so I just had to find the best place that I could on my own. And yeah, we would wake up and there would be like a spider on us. And I'm like, I just want to move.
That sounds a lot like what I went through too with, well, because when you leave and you lose your community too,
Yeah.
it's like you just want to make it, but it's so much harder when you have no one looking out for you. You have no one in the area. You can't just, like, there's a lot of safety in the group that you came from and the group I came from. There's people in every corner,
It's
right?
the devil that you know, right?
Right.
Like, it may not be actually safe, but it's safer than if you were out on your own. It could be safer than if you're out on your own in some circumstances.
Yeah. And yeah, that's true. Like, in your brain, it's like, well, I trust these people. They're familiar. But a lot of them were predators, at least where I came from too. Like, and Mormon church, just because they're a bishop doesn't mean that they're not a predator. I actually am curious for selfish reasons, actually, for my own wanting to know. Remember how I was saying on your channel, I was like, one thing that I wish I would have known is watch their actions and see, like, I will always watch a man's actions now and see if it's in line with his words. What are some things that now are musts for you that you didn't see when you were with the guys?
I would say my checklist as far as what I wanted in a guy drastically changed once I started focusing on myself. We talked about this on the episode on my channel about how I took a 2-year break and I wouldn't even go on dates. So it's not like I just didn't have a boyfriend and was dating casually. I didn't entertain anything. And it helped that it was 2020, so I was kind of isolated anyway. No one was really dating. So I took that time, figured out what I wanted, and then I made a manifestation list of everything I wanted in a guy. And I was like, this is interesting, because if I would have made this list 4 years ago, it would have been like tall, blue eyes, dark features, makes a lot of money, and like everything that's more material and inconsequential, and just like, this would be great, like super nice build, like great body, all of that stuff. And then when I made the list a second time, I realized what was actually important to me. Will be a good dad, treats me kind, likes to have weird conversations about random things. I'd been in relationships with the bodybuilder who couldn't hold a conversation. I'm a what if girl. I love being like, what if there were aliens and they all come down and told us that we had to be naked? Or like,
what would you do?
What would you do?
Yeah.
And I'd have some boyfriend be like, well, aliens aren't real, so.
Yep.
And I'm like, you're no fun.
Yeah.
And so I wanted someone who could play with me and who could intellectually stimulate me.
Right. Creative
And
too.
yeah, I wanted someone who was creative, who could understand the creative lifestyle. When I had made the list, I was doing wardrobe for TV and commercials. I was doing acting. I was booking jobs. I was a writer for a magazine. I was a social media coach, like doing all these different things. And I wanted someone who was a hustler. I wanted someone who had their shit together. So I just put, instead of like makes X amount of money, I was like financially stable, or brings me peace, or things that would actually affect my life. It doesn't matter if they're a bodybuilder. Like, that doesn't affect me. It doesn't bring me more happiness. Maybe it's attractive, but what I found comes with guys who are gym rats is they're always at the gym. And maybe they won't want to go get ice cream with me because they're counting calories. Yeah. And that's fine for some people, but I realized that that's not what was important to me. I wanted someone who would want to binge ice cream and watch a bunch of TV and Netflix and cuddle me. Yeah. That sounded more fun. And so my list shifted to what was actually important. And that same week I downloaded Hinge. And 3 weeks later, I met my now husband. Crazy is we found out that the exact same week, we both wrote a manifestation list. Aww. The exact same week, we downloaded Hinge. And then we met each other 3 weeks later, and we compared lists. And aside from maybe 2 things on each other's lists, they were all like, oh, we found each other. Oh, that's crazy. Cute. Yeah.
Yeah, hearing you talk about, like, how emotionally intelligent, like, we were discussing my stuff before we were even filming, and I'm like, it's so hard to believe that there's like emotionally intelligent men out there, but there has to be, because you say there is. Just kidding.
Because I found one. I just think it's so important to be able to have those deep conversations and communication, and yeah, that was something that I never would have considered needed to be a trait that I wanted until I realized what was important and the things that I valued that would actually affect my life in a positive way.
That's good. So with your healing, we'll probably end it on this healing. These questions are probably really hard to answer. They were hard for me to even come to terms with. I'm just curious with your healing journey to be able to, because you had to obviously heal in order to meet him and in order to see value in him too, right? Because your unhealed toxic version of yourself, the younger version, maybe not, I don't want to say toxic, but the person that just didn't realize what you wanted would probably see him as someone you're not attracted to at that time of your life.
Yeah, maybe.
So what do you think you had to go through to get to that point, or what was the hardest parts of the healing journey versus the easy parts, the process? Can you paint a little bit of a picture?
There's so much that went on in between those things. I mean, even down to uncovering memories of sexual abuse as a child that completely sent me into a tailspin.
Was it like sorry, I'm confused. It's memories you didn't know you had. Oh,
they came up, and then even since then everything has been confirmed by my abuser and some like stuff that I didn't even know happened. And so that was a really hard time, and that was actually rock bottom when I, if I may circle back around to the first guy that I was a live-in dog walker for, ended up back in his home 10 years later because I had just broken up with a boyfriend of 2 years. So I uncovered these memories, broke up with a boyfriend of 2 years because he was not emotionally available for me when I had this happen. And I was like, I just found out that the father that I have is not who I thought he was. And I'm just shocked. What do I do with this? And he was like, sorry, I'm on a party bus. I can't talk right now. Like, it was so like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And so we broke up. I was supposed to move to Hawaii with him because he was in the military in Hawaii. I'd been going back and forth. So my lease was ending. I needed to find a new place. So I answered this ad, get a phone call, and he was like, hey, Shelise, when do you want to move in? It's the same guy I lived with as a live-in dog walker, and I had no idea that was his house that I had responded to the ad with. And he was like, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. I felt so bad these last 10 years. I can't believe I treated you that way. I'm a totally different person now. And
blah blah blah.
I believed him. But also I was at rock bottom. I was like, okay.
You're like, even if it's not true, I don't even fucking care anymore.
And he's just like, if you want to move in, I'll give you a month free. And I was like, well, shit. I've been paying $1,600 a month. Just a month of relief sounds worth it. And so I moved in, and then he ended up being like, oh yeah, you can't have anyone over unless they're a girl. If it's a guy, it's because we're gonna have a threesome. Like, you can't just have guys over here. I'm like, what do you mean? I live here. Long story short, I ended up homeless, all my stuff in storage because I moved out of there within 3 weeks again.
Wow.
I'm like, Shelise, you're so dumb. I can't believe you fell for, like, you thought he changed. What are you doing? But, again, rock bottom.
It wouldn't have worked if you weren't in that vulnerable place.
I don't think it would have because
you were a little desperate in that moment.
I was desperate. I was heartbroken. I ended up there. Ended up dating someone else. It's such a long story. Someone else who was just like the first guy I told you about, but worse. It was that guy. So I was dating him. Found out he was dating 4 other women. Was like, it was so bad. And
I feel like with even each one, I don't know if you went through the same thing, but with my last one, I was like, when I got the phone call that he was basically with escorts, I was like, and it gets worse. like you just
keeps going.
But I wasn't shocked. I literally at the point, like, yes, I was shaking, but I was like, did I really?
Am I surprised?
I'm not. I'm not as surprised.
I say all of that because it was such an up and down, and there's no linear journey to healing. It will be up, it'll be down, it'll spiral down, it'll shoot back up, and you'll be like, I'm on top of the world, and then something will happen, and you're just like,
it's like high highs, low lows, high highs, low lows.
Yeah. And so in between that time, I ended up finding this class about, it was basically, it was more on the mystical side about your higher power, about your inner self, about healing your inner child. And they would talk about plant medicine journeys. And this whole time I'm like, no, drugs are bad because they'll kill you and you'll die.
They'll kill you and then you'll be dead.
Yeah, exactly.
And then what?
And then I'm going to outer darkness because I'm not Mormon anymore. And so I ended up, this is such a long story short, I ended up in Peru doing ayahuasca and sapo and combo and like all this plant medicine in the Amazon jungle as an actor. Like I was paid to go do this retreat, just like unwound this childhood trauma and trying to figure out who I am, and all of that to say it sent me on a path of rediscovering who I was, taking control of my life, finding that individual sovereignty that I talk about on my channel, and really just setting the course for, okay, I have been screwed over so many times. Like, let's just figure out what you want to do with your life. I was still screwed over one more time, but that's a story for another day. And so, ups and downs,
you're like,
right?
never again. Okay, one more time.
Last
That's
time.
it.
Last time.
That's all you get.
And so I think there's no right answer and there's no easy answer as to how did you heal. It was just literally one step at a time, trial and error. I'm going to be in this relationship and then learn from that and realize, okay, never date a guy who does this, and this. And then I'm going to sit with myself and be like, okay, what am I doing wrong as far as why am I accepting these type of relationships when I know my worth? Each time I date one of those men, I have to bring myself up to the point of, okay, I was accepting the love I thought I deserved. I was accepting bare minimum. I was accepting this love bombing because I thought I deserved that, which I do deserve that, but what comes with the love bombing is the isolation afterwards. There's always that push and pull with narcissistic relationships where they give you everything at the beginning and then they pull everything back so
breadcrumbs.
You'll accept breadcrumbs and be happy and be reaching for that and be like, oh, he did this for me. Here's one story. You're gonna love it. I have to tell it because it's just like the lengths that they will go. So it was my birthday, and I just wanted him to show up at this salsa club and dance with me because so dumb and cliche. He was the salsa instructor. I was the student. He wooed me, and he is an incredible dancer, like 10-time world champion. And I was like, oh my gosh, he likes me, like me. I'm the one he likes. And we were killer dancers together. I would teach with him at the club. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, your chemistry is insane. Like, I can see the sparks. And I'm like, I know, it's so like electric. And he was like, I was a playboy before and I'm not anymore. Like, you've changed me and I'm only with you. He wasn't. So anyway, I just wanted him to show up to the club for my birthday so that we could dance. That was my favorite thing, is going salsa dancing. Well, he didn't. And he said the reason he didn't is because he couldn't find a babysitter. Well, I was like, that's it. I'm done. All you had to do was show up. Like, bare minimum. I don't want a present. I don't want anything. I knew not to expect a lot from you, but this was so minimal. So I'm like, I'm breaking up with you. And then he gets the whole like, oh my God, you can't break up. What are you doing? Okay, I never want to see you again. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, we're still going to dance together, right? Like, I still want to be friends, but I just don't want to be your girlfriend, you know? And he was like...
He's trying to turn it around on you now?
He's trying to turn around on me. So he's like, I never expected anything from you. I just wanted to love you, and just like the whole thing. And there's so much to that relationship, which would be an entire episode on top of
it sounds he sounds toxic.
Oh, the worst. Like the levels, the lengths that he will go. So this is what he did. I'm sobbing in my car. I can't even drive away. I'm at his dance studio. I'm just sobbing. I'm like, can't see the road. So I'm just gonna cry until I'm fine enough to drive home. He comes back out and he was like, I don't want to see you like this, but I don't want to invite you in because I don't want you to see you how I am. Basically, like, he was pretending like he was falling apart, ripping at the seams, and he didn't want me to see him that way. And I'm like, you're just in the studio because you're annoyed with me crying.
Yeah, you just don't want to deal with a woman.
So he was like, okay, I wasn't going to tell you this, but look, I had this plan for your birthday. And he's like, I was going to take you to this concert. And I don't remember who it was, like a Latin singer or something. And he pulls up his phone and he shows me these tickets on his phone for my birthday to go to this concert. And he was like, I wanted to take you to this concert for your birthday, but I didn't tell you because I didn't know if I was going to be able to find a babysitter, and I didn't want you to get your hopes up. And I was like, that's so sweet.
Why wouldn't he say that earlier when you were breaking up with him?
Why wouldn't he say that earlier? Well, it took him like the 30 minutes that I was sobbing in my car to
Google
think of
it.
the idea.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, it gets worse. He went to that concert with someone else.
Oh
on
my
birthday.
gosh.
Went to the
He
concert.
would.
So he showed me actual tickets. And so
He's like, just don't look at the name on that one.
Oh.
That's insane. But it worked for you. You were
It
like,
worked for like a
"Oh."
hot second, and I was like, oh, okay, like he's sorry.
Wait,
I
how did
told
you find
him-
out that he went?
Because it was one of his exes that was like, wake up, and she like
She's like shaking
she
you.
snapped me out of it, and she was like, he's doing this, he's doing that, and I'm like, that's not true. And I already had a bias against her because he had of course told me all the negative things. Oh, she's crazy. And so I finally listened to her, and I was like, okay, all right, let's see what you got. Let's see what you got. And she told me all the things, and I was like, holy shit, I've just been conned again. Turns out the entire salsa scene knew about this. They knew he was seeing multiple women. He told them we all knew about each other, and he could get away with it because we were all dancers. So he could hang out with all of us at the same time, and we all thought we were there with him. Honestly, I'm like, wow, Shelise, you really fell for that one. But
He knew what he was doing, though.
Like, he's a pro.
Right. And whenever I would shame myself with my exes, like, stupid. But it's like, they've been doing this their whole life.
Oh, yeah.
And
He's old, too. He's got it figured out. And he's a good dancer. And so people, the men worshipped him because he's a good dancer. And they all thought that I was a slut because they thought that I knew that I was basically in a polygamous relationship.
Wow.
And I had no idea.
And no one wanted to talk about it, too. I feel like
No one
I'd be
brought
that
it up
one
to
in the
me.
class, like, so do you ever get jealous? Like, I would be so curious.
There was one person, and we're now really good friends, and we bonded over this. It was the one girl who was able to not be swayed by his advances, and he literally said, I'm friends with you because you're not stupid like all these other girls that fall for me.
What an asshole.
Yeah.
You know, that's something I really do think that these men that do this shit, they hate themselves. I talked about this already before, but like,
Yep.
they don't like themselves. So as soon as they want you so bad, but as soon as you fall for them, they lose respect for you.
Yes. So when you said that, I was like, yep, I have a guy in mind who actually said that. And so I took her out dancing. It was after I cut it off with him. And I took her out, and I was like, I just have to apologize because I was told so many horrible things about you from this guy, and that's why I was never really that kind to you. Like, I was never rude to her, but I was always very
Standoffish,
reserved.
yeah.
And she was always like, oh my gosh, you're such a good dancer. Look at you, you're so beautiful. And I'm just like, I feel like she's being fake because he's told me all these things, and I was believing him. And so I told her, I was like, I'm so sorry that I wasn't kinder to you. And she was like, what do you mean? And I told her all the things that he had said about her, and she was blown away. And she was like, hold on. And then she was like, I was like, I just found out that he was dating other people. And she's like, you didn't know? And she's like, everybody knew. And I was like, what? I felt like such an idiot. And she was like, oh yeah, you guys would all be sitting there, and he'd be like, yeah, these are my bitches, and they're all fighting over who's gonna take me home tonight.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so once she found out that I didn't know, she cut him off. We confronted him. It was a whole thing.
Good.
It was like another one of those moments where it's like, how can you look at yourself in the mirror? I looked at him and I was like, just tell me you never loved me. Just tell me you never loved me. Because he would be like, I love you so much. No one's ever going to love you as much as I do.
Oh, please.
I bet none of your other ex-boyfriends could tell you how many freckles you have on your face. I know every single mark on your body. I love you so much. And I, oh my gosh.
Did you melt at that one? Did that one make you melt?
Make me melt. No, I was like, why are you looking so close to my freckles?
You're like, okay. This is the thing that bothers me so bad too. It's the whole stigma of women are so dramatic. Men are dramatic. Him over there having to play these fucking games like that and be like, I'm the hottest bitch ever. It's like, you are a drama queen.
Even attractive, man. I'm so ashamed to say that I was like, it was the dancing. He was so good, and there really was chemistry. I mean, my goodness, it wasn't just, it was stupid chemistry. But anyways, it was so dumb, and I'm so glad that I made my way out of that.
Yeah.
And wow.
Thank God, yeah. Each one is a lesson learned. And on the shitty thing is looking, I mean, I don't know if you can say this about all your exes, but looking back at all my exes, I don't think any of them have changed. I don't think any of them have grown. I don't think any, I mean, maybe a little bit, but I know for a fact the last two are definitely still playing games and just fucking around, wasting their time and other people's time.
Well, my friend who I just told you about, she's the one who told me all of his ploys. So I told you on our episode, he would send me excuses like, oh, I can't come over because my motorcycle got a flat tire, and he would send me a picture. I found out from her that he had a folder of excuses that he would just send at a whim. So he would take pictures of his food, like, oh, I'm eating dinner at so-and-so's house, but he was probably with one of the other girls. And so he just had he would even, this is what she said, she witnessed him do this. He would text a conversation to one of his friends and say, send me this conversation. He would change the number in his phone to like a girl. They would text this conversation back and forth, and then he'd be like, look, see, she's crazy.
That is insane.
Instead of me, but like I was saying earlier, they will come up with these elaborate excuses and never expect to be called on them, because I could have easily been like, oh, let me scroll up. But I wouldn't, because I was so trusting that I was just like, oh, well, he's being forthcoming. He's showing me his phone. Like, I don't need to ask to see more.
Right.
But if I would have been like, tried to scroll, see it was a screenshot, and be like, where's the rest?
Yeah. Yep. They don't plan for that. And I think they definitely want the girls to be very trusting. They pick girls that are going to be more trusting. And then, I mean, I don't know, maybe they could keep one once they figure it out, but then it becomes more and more toxic, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, there was one girl who apparently was his main one. I think I was number 2 on the list, so I've been told. But the main girl knew about everybody else and was fine with it, and was just like still wanting his attention. And so she would even know, like, oh, he's just got done with somebody, and she would be like, okay, I'm ready for you now. Like, knowing that he just slept with someone and was waiting for him to be done.
Ew.
So that she could have him.
I mean, if she was with other people, I don't know.
I don't think she was.
Oh.
I think she was just
in love with him.
She was just stuck in, and I can't even blame her fully, because I understand the grip that he could have, and the way, like, he was such a good actor. I swear, like, every other week someone in his family died, and now I don't know if any of it's true. I'm like, how many times can an aunt die? Like, my aunt just died, and I'm so sad, and I just need love. And I'm like, oh my god, let me help you, because I'm the person that's like, oh.
And now you're at the point, you're like, what's your aunt's name?
Yeah. What's her social security number?
Seriously.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm at the point right now where I'm like, I just don't trust anymore. Like, I'll date you, but I don't believe any fucking thing coming out of your mouth. And I don't know if I think I need to go on that sabbatical, right? Of just not dating anyone and just dating myself. And because I'm in this phase of, I was talking about the healing stage, right? There's the blissful before healing, where you're just ignorant and blindly running around like a chicken with your head cut off. And it's fun, because you don't really know the issues that are happening, but they're still happening. There's still issues. You're still having people, treat you badly, disrespect you, all of these things. But because you're not pointing it out or aware of it, it doesn't seem so bad. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of the stage you're in when you're in a cult too. Like, you don't realize it's abuse because that word's not even used. You don't realize you're depressed because that word's also not used. So it's kind of like the ignorance is bliss. So I'm out of that phase, which I sometimes feel like is even more hard, because you're at this phase where something's wrong, something's uncomfortable, you don't want to repeat the cycle, but you don't know how to make that shift, because you've been doing this your whole life. Now it's time to shift, but you don't know how to do this, right? So it's that stagnant area, which is where I'm at. I'm like, I'm uncomfortable, but this is also better than just running around wasting my life, you know?
Yeah, relationships are hard, and just realized I made myself look like an idiot, but what do you do? I'm a cult kid. What do I know?
I didn't know better.
I think, here's the thing. For anyone who was like, how could you fall for that? Or like, how could you possibly get involved in a cult? I think it's so much easier than people realize to slip into situations, especially if you're the type of person who's so forgiving, if you're the type of person that wants to see the good in everybody. I think it is easy to be taken advantage of. So this is why we do these things, these little PSAs for y'all. So you can be on the lookout for these red flags. So you can go like, oh, someone said something like that to me. Maybe I should look into that. Mm-hmm. Or, wow, there are patterns within cult leaders and narcissistic relationships and high control groups, and these are the patterns, and this is how they love bomb you so that you believe anything that they say, and this is how they control you by just taking advantage of your good nature and your good heart.
Yeah.
And recognize that if it does happen to you, you're not dumb. And I'm saying that to myself to make myself feel better, because it can happen to anybody.
It's so true.
And I think just being able to get yourself out of it is the important part. And if it has happened, we shouldn't feel ashamed of it.
Right.
Just move on. I mean, look at me now. I'm in a happy relationship, happy marriage, just had a baby.
Oh,
and
yes.
I feel like there is light at the end of the tunnel, but you do have to do a lot of work in deprogramming these mindsets so that you don't just accidentally fall back into it.
Right. I think that I've struggled with the guilt and shame part of it, of like feeling kind of silly for falling back into these relationships and wanting to be loved. But the reality is there needs to be no guilt and shame tied to it, because like you're saying, it can happen to anyone. Guilting yourself and shaming yourself is kind of besides the point. It's not really helping the situation. And I think that focusing on, yes, you can try to like make sure of the red flags, whatever. I think that there's also a side of that too, that's what we were talking about, the intuition and just knowing. And if you have to beg someone to respect you, beg someone to love you, maybe they're not your person. So hopefully you guys got something out of this. I got a lot out of this, actually. So even if you guys didn't, then it was worth it for me. But I think, did you want to add anything else?
I think just like you were saying, to piggyback on it, just go easy on yourself. Recognize that healing is never a linear journey. It's always going to be up and down and sideways and backwards, and that's okay. And you're not doing anything wrong if it looks like that. And just taking it one step at a time, listening to your intuition, listening to your gut is such a big deal, because when something feels off, you're always right. I mean, like with that first relationship that I told you about, I even had a dream that he was cheating, and I told him, I was like, I had this dream and I don't feel good about it. And he was like, baby, I would never do anything like that to you.
Looks you in the eyes and says that.
They always do, and they're always so convincing. So if I would have just listened to my gut and been like, like I know it was a dream, but just something feels off about this, you know?
I'm going to go through his phone. I'm never not. I told myself, I'm like, if I ever have a gut feeling to go through a guy's phone, I'm going through that phone. I don't even care. I don't care if that's toxic. I don't care. If you're giving me a reason to go through your phone, it's your fault.
Yeah, trust is so important. And I feel like once that's gone, everything just crumbles. So
it's
finding
true.
someone that you can be with, who you can really, really trust is huge. Building that trust, taking time to build trust, and open communication and emotional intelligence. Let's just wrap it back around.
Yep. That's what we need. Well, thank you guys for watching. And if you did not catch Shalise's episode that we just recorded, it's linked in the description box down below. Go watch it. We talked more about my traumas on there. So go check that out. We also did some lives, and I'll have those linked in the description box down below as well. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you on Sunday. Bye.
Bye. That's good. That was good.